Welcome back to the Panic Room, everyone, for another book review. Now, I know a lot of times I say my book reviews are special for one reason or another, but you guys saw the title. It's not every day you get to buddy read a book with the son of the devil. That's right, guys, I got to buddy read Boy Parts with the amazingly creative Mister Morningstar. Of course, his info will be down below. You guys should all go check him out. If you are a lover of anything horror and you do not have him in your feed, you are missing out. Trust me on this one. So where to begin with Boy Parts? Our book centers around a girl by the name of Irina, and she is a photographer. Now, there are no happy trees or snowy mountains in her art. Wait, that's painting. Scratch that. No, she's a photographer, and I guess you would call her work abstract. And when I say abstract, I feel like you guys have seen examples of kind of what she does. It's when you take something that is very mundane and either you put it with something else that's mundane but in a weird way, or you change the situation or maybe the coloring, and you come up with something new and weird. I'm put in mind of this picture, and I don't know what it's called. I'll put it on the screen here. But, you know, it's a man with an apple, and neither one of those things are weird, but the way they're put together makes it odd, you know? And so she takes pictures of boys and men in, like, various weird kind of situations. For example, there's one time where she takes a picture of a guy who's in his underwear with like a bunny head. Okay, I feel like you get what I'm saying. All right, so that's our girl. And right out of the gate, you get a very sociopathic feel about her. If I had to sum her up in one word, I would say cold. All right? Now, that being said, she has one of the best narrating voices I think I've ever had in a book. If you guys watched my review of Stephen King's Later, you know that I said in that review that my very favorite part of that book was the strength of the voice of Jamie, our main character. And that's the case with this one. Probably my favorite thing is just her voice and the way she narrates. And it's so good that as the reader, to me, you get two experiences. Number one, you are there with her, experiencing what she's experiencing, but at the same time, I kind of got a little interview with a vampire in some situations, because like there were a lot of times that I almost felt like I was sitting across from her in a smoky bar with a beer and she was telling me all this weird shit. Yeah. And I think that's really a mark of awesome writing if you can give the reader, from the privileged perspective that you have as the reader, both those experiences, you know? So you have some auxiliary characters, and I say that in every sense of the word, auxiliary, because Irina is the type of person that doesn't really have friends, I guess, in the truest sense of the word. There's one woman by the name of Flo that I guess you would call her best friend. And they met in university. Flo, I think, is an illustrator, whereas Irina is the photographer. But they both were in the same vein in university. So there's that relationship. And then there's some other auxiliary characters. The only other one that really jumps out is our little Tesco boy. And I don't want to go too much into him because I don't want to give you guys any spoilers if I can help it, because you really do want to read this book. And that's really it. The sociopathic nature of our main character, our girl, Irina, really doesn't lend itself to relationships very well. And a lot of times the author uses that lack of relationships and how Irina just completely sucks at it to give you a lot of insight into her as a character. Even with her parents, like her mom is a piece of work. Oh my gosh. It's no one. I mean, she would have been screwed up. Even if she wasn't like as screwed up as she is in the book, anybody would have been screwed up with that mom. And, you know, me being me, the whole time before we were introduced really to her parents as a couple, I was thinking like, I want to know more. You know, I want to know about her childhood, how she got here, the whole shebang. But I know that's a me thing. And I think you guys know that now too. But like you see how the mother is super manipulative, because like her dad is this really like gem of a man and her mom was super manipulative of him. And so it made me wonder, like, did she learn some of this shit from her mom because she's really manipulative? And of course it leaves you as the reader wondering, because of what Irina photographs in men and boys, did the relationship with her father, being this very like kind of a doormatty type of individual, did that color her sense of men when she was younger? But I digress. That was probably just me like wandering off into my own head. So you see all these events that happen with Irina and many times her friends where, you know, they go to things like a house party and shit will happen to Irina that for other people would probably require therapy. to get over. No joke. And if Irina reacts at all, it's with anger, which just, again, lends itself to solidifying this whole like sociopathic nature she has. But I have to say, one of the other things that shocked me was the humor in this book. Now, I'm going to pause here and read you guys one of the scenes that had me just rolling with laughter. To set the scene for you, they are, I think, leaving a house party and on their way to another party, and they're in an Uber, okay? And they're on various substances. Our main girl likes the snow. I think they call it snow. Do the kids call it snow nowadays? Anyway. So she's talking to the Uber driver, okay? Is she okay? The driver nods back at Flo. She's fine. In fact, I'd be more worried about your man there. I pointed at Finch. Grinning like an absolute twat. Oh, and this takes place like in the UK, so I'm probably going to butcher a lot of this slang. Just so you know. Forgot to take his magnesium supplements. Now look at him. He's going to lose a tooth like that. Have you ever seen Bounce by the Ounce on YouTube? Bounce by the Ounce? No? What is that? Is that a music thing? Sort of. It's a video of this tragic club where some shitty town, where there's this bald feller grinning his tits off. Looks like Gollum. Gollum in a really rough extended cut. Gollum in Middle Earth after dark. Like one bump to rule them all. One bump to line them, one bump to something, and in the sesh we bond them, I say. Flo screams with laughter, stomping her feet on the floor of the taxi. God, you effing love Lord of the Rings, don't you? Says Finch. You only ever talk about it when you're off your tits, and that's how I know you love it. One bump to rule them all. Gollum in Middle Earth after dark. Oh, I was dying. I thought that was hilarious. And there's lots of points of that in the book. Like, I was not expecting how funny this book was, at least to me. So, another part of this book I really liked, and again, this is me, because, you know, I'm always wanting to know, like, more why in our characters. And with Irina especially, because I think anybody would be like, why? Why is she this way? What happened to this girl? You know, why does she photograph men like this? You know, why does she treat other people like this? Why does she treat herself like this? Because she has that whole, like, sociopathic conundrum of, I'm so superior, you know, I eat a certain way, I take care of my skin, but at the same time, you know, I think I'm shit and don't deserve to breathe, so I'm gonna go and, you know, put all these substances in my body and, you know, put myself in these super dangerous situations. So it's that, I'm sure you've seen that, like in other sociopathic type characters, where it's this conundrum. You know, you have the superiority, but then them thinking that they're not worth anything. I think you know what I'm talking about. You definitely see this with Irina. It's very clear. So there's this underlying plot through the book about how Irina has this big event coming up, and really, she kind of shows some excitement, which is shocking. It's like the only positive emotion she has. And there's this good chunk of the book where she's got like a glass of wine and she's going through these boxes and files trying to find these photos to pull out for this event. And I know, you're thinking like, Pax, that shit's been done. You've seen that countless times in books and movies. And you're right, it has. And I think that it is one of those situations that it can be done really, really well or really, really crappy. And in this case, it's really well done. It's written in such a way that you really feel like you're there going through the boxes with her as she's telling you these stories. And might I just add, again, some of the shit that happened to her, like back in university, most people would need therapy to get through. Or a lot of times, you might need therapy to get through. Maybe some medication even. But our girl just tells it like it's nothing, you know? And with every little bit of history and activity that she does, you get a little bit more reason as to why she is the way she is, and a little bit more insight into how she thinks. Now, the other big point in the book is her with our little Tesco boy, and it really kind of shocks the reader, because at first you think it's going to be like maybe a romance, and I was down for that because I wanted to see how a sociopath does that, you know? But then it goes exactly how you think it would, and she ruins it because of her, like, out of touch with reality kind of deal. Now, going down that rabbit hole, you do have a whole kind of spin on this book where you don't know for sure if some of the stuff that she tells you is even real, because there's this whole deal where she's not entirely sure that everything that she experiences is real. So, as the reader, at least for me, I was wondering, like, okay, is this because of the substances that she likes to partake in? Maybe she's done it too long, too much? Or is this just her mental state, you know? And you do have some big reveals in the book, but even then, even when you get to some of these big reveals, you are left wondering, like, is it really a reveal? Did it even happen? Because she doesn't know. And as the book progresses, you just get further and further and further down the little spiral of her mental health, because more outlandish things start happening, but you don't know. Like, are they happening? And it's done so well. It is done so, so well. And one thing that Mr. Morningstar brought up when we were talking about this is, like, at some points in the book, you get, like, these text conversations. And as the book progresses, I almost feel like that they're kind of an anchor, because you get Irina kind of, like, telling you about all this, like, wacky stuff, and you're like, is she having another, like, episode? And then you get this text conversation where you know that's happening. So you as the reader get to kind of, like, put the pieces together and say, okay, so this was in the conversation, so it must have actually happened. And in true psychotic fashion, the book does not tie it up with a bow. You are definitely left feeling like you just opened a window into Irina's life, and all of a sudden it was slammed in front of you. And that's it. That's the only piece you get to see. And I love that. I love that. I can't stress to you guys how amazed I am at myself that I got through this entire review without a spoiler. But I cannot stress to you guys how well written her voice is. If for no other reason, you should read it for that. Just so that you can feel the strength of her as a character. If you are a fan of things like American Psycho, that's the biggest example I can think of. But anything that gets you in the head of a sociopath, you will love this. You really will. And I really loved the idea that our sociopath had an artistic kind of job, because for something like photography and art in general, really, I feel like it has to have emotion in it in order to make it good. Now, I'm not an art connoisseur by any stretch of the imagination, but, you know, I feel like art a lot of times has to have some emotion in order to elicit emotion. And so it's a really awesome premise to have someone who is so cold and unfeeling and calculating having such an artistic side to her. So it lends itself so well, and I cannot fathom how hard it must have been to write a character like Irina and do it to the extent that our author did so, so well. So guys, I totally recommend it. If you are into any kind of sociopathic type horror, you're gonna love this. Now, it's not in your face blood and gore. You do get some blood. You do. I do have to tell you that there are some scenes that might be a little triggering to people with certain types of trauma, especially sexual trauma. So maybe keep that in mind before you pick it up. But yeah, I have to say my most favorite part is just the strength of Irina as a character and her voice. I can still hear her. And I loved the humor, I loved the insight into her, and I love the fact that it wasn't tied with a pretty bow. I thought that was really awesome too. It was perfect ending to that story. Like I said, it was like the window just got slammed on you as you were watching this little section of her life. So guys, that's it. I hope I whet your palate for this book. You know, like I said, this was a buddy read with Mr. Morningstar, so you guys should all definitely go check out his video. We have very different styles, so I'm sure he's probably going to do an absolutely amazing job giving you his thoughts and opinions on this book. And I highly recommend that you watch his video, because his videos are an experience. They're not just a review, they're an experience. And if you go watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So comment down below, guys. What do you think? What do you think about sociopaths in your horror? Do you like to get in their heads? You know, I do, because, you know, as humans, we are very emotional creatures. So I feel like to see a human that doesn't have that is just incredibly intriguing on a lot of levels. It really is. You know, I think that those of us that like to read horror and mystery and things like that, we really just dive deep into like the whole psyche of characters like Irina, or any kind of sociopath that's well written like she was in this book. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another book review. Please like and subscribe. It would really help me out. And don't forget to check out Mr. Morningstar's video. So until next time, guys, bye for now.